Skull Buffs, baby.
Welcome on into another edition of SBS Basketball Live alongside Xavier McNevitz. He's Liam Howard and Oliver Hayes on the left. I'm Shane Holcomb, your host. Guys, Colorado played BYU in the men's and women's side this weekend. Xavier, though, I'm going to start with you because J.R. Payne's team had one of their most dominant performances of the season. The CU women's team beats BYU 76-46 at the Event Center. That was the Cougars' fewest points in a game all season. Your first reaction?
I mean, it was a defensive masterclass, like you said. BYU was held to 31% from the field, and it pushed them out of the bubble, right? Now they're, according to ESPN's bracketology, they're the last four in. They're the 12 seed. There might be a first four team going into March, but my biggest takeaway is that they need to have the same showing in Provo the last game of the year because that can make a difference in the Big 12 standings.
That's right, and again, you mentioned it. The first time out of two times they're playing in the span of 2 weeks, so they'll see the Cougars again very soon. But guys, Colorado traveled to Provo on the men's side this past weekend. Liam, 90-86 loss in overtime. It was an end-to-end game. Good bounce back though after the Texas Tech loss. Your first reactions from a overtime game that was an opportunity to get a quad one win, but they couldn't get it done.
Yeah, if you're this men's team, you gotta feel like you're in dangerous territory going forward towards the Big 12 tournament. This was a tough week, and everyone knew that going in, but the Buffaloes would have loved to pick up one of those two wins against either Texas Tech or BYU. Couldn't get the job done late against BYU, but there was stuff to be encouraged about. You got the 16 forced turnovers, which is huge, especially when you're going into a high-stakes Big 12 tournament. Ben Dak and Sebastian Ranchik both playing the boards. That's something that they've been looking to do all season. Haven't been able to be doing it super effectively. It was somewhere they were looking to step up this season, but those things are encouraging. The way they came to play in the road environment, of course, as well. So things to be encouraged about, but also got to be a little bit worried when looking at that record.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can be a little bit worried when looking at the postseason implications, a chance at March, which seems very bleak at the moment. And looking at this game, when Richie Saunders goes down with the torn ACL just on the second play, you kind of have to take this performance with a grain of salt. But you talk about the bounce back from Texas Tech, and honestly, just the bounce back from their last few road performances. You think about their performance at Iowa State up in Ames, their performance against Baylor, just recently against Texas Tech, like we mentioned. By losing by 19 points or more, only one road win this whole entire season. Only losing by 4 to a ranked opponent, no matter what the roster looks like or what injuries unfold, is something that you can hang your hat on. As it came down to, it was just made shots versus missed shots. And BYU has a lot of talent. To lose to a team like the Cougars is nothing to be ashamed of, especially when it goes to overtime. Of course, you can be disappointed about a loss, but to bounce back in that fashion, especially seeing the offense clicking and taking advantage of the personnel matchups that they saw in that BYU matchup is very encouraging, for me at least, going into the postseason, because I think the Buffs, given the right matchups in the Big 12 tournament, can make a deep run, which they need at this point in the season.
And Xavier, let's talk about that potential for making a run, and because I want to talk about the men's have a couple more ranked teams on their schedule. They play Houston, they play Arizona. We'll get into that a little bit later, but the men competed against BYU, which is something they haven't done against a ranked team on the road, like Oliver was saying. So do you think they can compete against some of these other ranked teams going forward? I mean, I know Houston, Arizona are probably a level up from BYU, right, but what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm just going to echo what Oliver was saying, right? I mean, they had that performance out in Iowa State, and then they come and take number 22 ranked BYU to overtime. I think they can compete, but I don't know if they can win.
Yeah, I think that this is another one of those cases where they were stepping up and playing up to what they had played earlier in the week. This was a case of playing angry after that horrible loss to Texas Tech. The Buffaloes weren't going to let that happen again. I think that they went into this BYU game with a different sort of fire under themselves, but I got to be honest, give that some time. I don't think that's going to hold up against a team like Houston in that road environment. But then there's the Big 12 tournament, neutral site for both teams. I think that's somewhere that the Buffaloes could step up and play similar to how they played in Provo.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona and Houston, you look at those two teams, top two in the Big 12, and the Buffs are now 0-7, I believe it is, against the top half of the Big 12. So obviously not a very good record. It's hard to believe that they're going to pick up wins against either of those two teams. But seeing the competitive edge that they played with down in Provo, you think of the games against Texas Tech at home, against Kansas at home. So with Arizona coming to the Buffs on Senior Day, we'll get to talking about that a little bit later. It could be very interesting for CU to come and prove themselves. And for this point in the season, of course, like I talked about, there's the postseason implications. You got to be worried about that. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, trying to keep guys on this roster next season, in the future, looking at what the next years look like, a year from now, 2 years, 3 years from now, what can this team do to prove themselves and show that they can play basketball with the big boys? What can they do against Houston and Arizona? It may not be a win, but it can be something. It could be another 27 points from Isaiah Johnson. It could be another 8, 10, 11 points from Jalen Holland alongside some solid defense. You can see those steps that they're starting to make that were only flashes in the blowouts, but then got put together versus BYU. And I think if the Buffs can do that versus Arizona and Houston, they may not win. I don't think anyone is expecting that, but you can see that competitive edge that the Buffs can ride into the next seasons further, and especially if they can keep over the offseason.
And Oliver, I'm happy you mentioned it because we're actually going to touch on it a little bit later, talking about containing or keeping that roster intact going forward, because there's a lot of young, talented freshmen. We'll get into Isaiah Johnson in a later question, but this team does have potential, right, going forward. Like you talked about, a lot of freshmen have played basketball this season. The guys transitioning over to the women's team. Xavier McNevitz here is our MVP of SBS Women's Ride-In. But Xavier, I'm going to ask you who the MVP has been so far of the women's team in Big 12 play. They have won 4 straight games. What's been the case?
So I know who those two fellows are going to pick. So I'm going to be different. I'm going to say senior forward Jade Masagayo, right? She was averaging 9 points per game in conference play. She wasn't playing her best basketball after being a preseason Big 12 pick, and she's really stepped it up as of late. Through 15 games in conference play, she's averaging 14 points per game, and it just seems like when she's playing better, the team is playing better. So that's
we certainly may have gone with the obvious pick here, but I got to be honest, Anael Dutai, you cannot overlook what she's done. You talk about a complete player. She is all that and more. This team and any team for that matter, can't win without defense and rebounding. She's a huge factor in both. Leads the team in rebounding by 3.1 rebounds per game. 8.3 is what she's averaging. 1.8 steals per game. She has been incredible off the glass and on defense. That's what you need from a player in the Big 12, a tough conference. But also, the way that she's been playing recently, senior leader, 20 points against Arizona. I know you got more to say about her, Oliver.
Yeah, I mean, I just got to echo what you said. Really, with the rebounding and defensive stats, bringing up the percentile for where she ranks among Division I players. When you look at the offensive rebounds, 99th percentile across Division I. You look at the steals, 97th percentile. To have that impact with outscoring the basketball leads to great advanced statistics, great numbers, and that's why she's played a number that isn't this number isn't advanced in minutes played, but she's led the Buffs in minutes played with 820 this season, and even though she's led the Buffs in minutes, she has the highest plus minus. That is why she's on the floor. A positive 210 when she is on the floor puts her in the 92nd percentile. When you're in the 90th percentile, I mean, everyone went to school. They did their standardized testing. If they got in the 90th percentile, I mean, mom was taking them for ice cream after school. So, Anael Dutai, she is doing what she can and more for the Buffs this season. She is my MVP, your MVP, and I think Xavier would have said MVP, but it pays off to be different.
I'm gonna be different for sure. I'm just gonna echo what you guys are saying. AD is like, she's a dog, right? She's like almost Weasley in a sense. Like, all of a sudden she's there, she's getting that board, she's putting it back up, she's getting a bucket, right? And she's like the heart and soul of that Buffalo squad.
Well, guys, I'm happy you point out those two names. But before we move on, I got to say something about my girl, Desiree Wooten. She's been absolutely balling out this season off the bench. If there's a game at 1 p.m. on a Sunday at the CU Event Center, I don't think I've ever seen a better basketball player in my life, okay? Her performance against TCU was incredible. She's probably the most reliant three-point shooter on the team as well, on a team that doesn't really shoot the three-point ball that well. So I'm kind of shocked none of you guys said Desiree Wooten, but I also wanted to give her some flowers before we moved on. Regardless, talking about, though, the Big 12 men's side, guys, there's a lot of strong teams this season on the men's side. Arizona, Iowa State, Houston, Kansas, Texas Tech, BYU, the list goes on and on and on. Oliver was saying Colorado has struggled against the top of the Big 12 because all those teams are really, really good. And so I'll start with you on this one, Xavier. all those teams, you're going to probably be looking at them late in March to make a run, maybe even for a national championship, dare I say, the first one since Baylor a couple years back. Can the Big 12 win the national title, and who's most likely to do it?
Yeah, so I know who those fools are going to pick again, right? So I'm going to be different again, and I'm going to say the team who beat Arizona and say Rock Chalk Jayhawks. I'm not gonna doubt Bill Self. I think Kansas is the deepest team in the Big 12, and they can win without the projected number 1 overall pick, Darren Peterson.
Yeah, but to be honest, though, Arizona, what a team. You talk about a team that is in a position to win a national title. That means quick scoring. That means guys who are going to grab boards. That means how are you going to out physical some of the smaller teams early on in the tournament, and then how are you going to score late in the tournament? Arizona is constructed like if you were to carve out the exact and design in a lab the exact team that could win a national championship. I believe it is Arizona. They're in a bit of a rut at this current moment, but dropping that first game of the season can do that to you as a team. Look at Iowa State as an example. They dropped that first game to Kansas. They turn right around. They lose that game to Cincinnati, and people are thinking, my goodness, is Iowa State a complete pretender? But now they've turned it back around. They are one of and competing with Arizona to be that number 1 team in the Big 12. That turnaround's going to come for Arizona. It's going to come off of their 2 forwards who are averaging almost a double-double a game for both of them. And then, of course, Burries and Pete, who are the 2 incredible electric offensive players for them. I think Arizona is designed to go deep in this tournament.
Yeah, you make a great case for Arizona. And Xavier, you make a great case for Kansas. There are quite a few teams in the Big 12 that can compete. But the big thing that stands out for me, that especially going into this year from last, is that last year's teams, they maybe didn't have the stardom as much, but they had the depth. And you look at the teams this year in the Big 12, whether it's Texas Tech, whether it's Houston, whether it's BYU, you don't notice the depth as much as they were showing up last year. You're seeing the star players a lot more because JT Toppin, somehow he's taken a step after a Big 12 national player or a Big 12 Player of the Year campaign. You've seen AJ DeBonta come in and have the freshman year that he's had, et cetera, et cetera. And so when you look at a team like Kansas and a team like Arizona, and you can see the fact that they can go deep into a bench and that they have multiple players where they can plug and play when the personnel isn't working out for them, that is huge. And both of those teams, from top to bottom, also have tall lineups. Their backcourt is not small players. When you look at Kansas, they have Melvin Council. He's a tall guy. He has the energy. He brings it. Trey White, he does the same. You look at Arizona, they have Braden Berries. They have Jane Bradley. Those guys can wreak havoc on the defensive end as well as scoring the basketball. And I think those are the big things that make those 2 teams special. But the one difference, the one factor that stands out to me is while Flory Badunga is doing a fantastic job for the Jayhawks, the difference maker for that team, he is the MVP of that team in my opinion. I think the front court depth that Toby Awaka brings off the bench for the Wildcats is the difference maker and the big reason why they could be national championship winners come this March.
Well, I'm sure my friend Aspen is very much enjoying your guys praising his Arizona team in the control room there. And listen, I think Arizona is a great ball club, but someone mentioned their name a little bit earlier. Right now, if I had to pick a national champion, I think I'd pick Iowa State. I mean, this is a team that has been on fire recently. They beat some of the best teams in the country. They've got some more challenges coming up. They're also, I think, the deadliest shooting team in the country as well when it comes to three-point play. So, like, this team, also when it comes to playing good defense, they've been in some Sweet 16s recently. Can they take the next step would be my question going forward. But someone who's trying to take the next step into the NCAA tournament, Xavier, or the Colorado women's basketball team. They have a signature win. They beat TCU. They've got a couple games in there, like the UCF loss, that doesn't look great on the resume when they try to get into the tournament as an at-large. But right now, when you look at the women's resume and you look at what they've accomplished, their body of work, they're right there. Are you impressed, and are you letting them into the NCAA tournament right now?
I don't know if I'm going to let them into the NCAA tournament right now because they're a great home team and they struggle on the road, right? I think they're going to need to prove it in the Big 12 tournament that they can win on the road and at a neutral site, right? But as of right now, they control their own destiny, right? I mean, if they beat Texas Tech, that's another big win, which unfortunately still wouldn't count as quad one, right? And so I think if they win out, if they beat Texas Tech, they beat Utah, and they beat BYU, they're looking up. And then if they catch a win or two in the Big 12 tournament, I think that they're definitely going to be in the
Well, maybe you're not letting them in the door right now, but maybe you're giving them like a little bit of an advantage. Like the reservation's not set right now in the hotel, but like they're like on the waiting list, right?
They control their destiny.
Okay. Good to know. Well, guys, the men have a much more uphill battle to climb. I mean, the at-large berth is non-existent a possibility, but they have some opportunities we talked about earlier their schedule presents them with to get what is a signature win that they're kind of lacking right now when it comes to maybe playing Houston on the road, beating Arizona. Looking at the graphic there, guys. See how lopsided those games have been in Q1. Games going on to the road has been a big struggle in that. But Liam, what do you think is more likely? CU goes on the road to beat Houston or they beat Arizona at home?
I'm going to say that I think the Houston game is the more likely win for the Buffaloes. Like I was saying, I think that Arizona is the most manufactured team to win a national championship right now. Houston is close behind, and this is not a likely scenario either for the Buffaloes. I want to make that very clear. This is not a likely scenario to win, but it is certainly likelier than playing that Arizona team. Arizona is just slightly better, and Tad knows how to coach against this Houston team. We saw that in Kansas City. We were there last season, and we saw that game. That was about the closest that the Buffaloes played against, or any team in the Big 12 tournament played against Arizona. Now, certainly two different teams that we're matching up here, looking at in this matchup, I should say. But Tad knows how to coach against this Houston team. I think this Colorado team is slightly more talented, a little more than slightly more talented than last season's. They can certainly give Houston more of a game than they could give Arizona.
Yeah, I think personnel-wise, bringing up the points that I brought up when talking about the national championship runs, when you look at the front court depth, Houston just doesn't have it in comparison to what Arizona has. And that is no knock on Houston whatsoever. Don't get me wrong. Joseph Tugler and Chris Nack, they are a fantastic front court, one of the best in the Big 12. That's why Houston is doing what they're doing. So it will be no walk in the park for Colorado down in Houston on the road, which would be very tough for them. But personnel-wise, I think the Buffs, especially if they can somehow force a poor three-point shooting night from the very talented backcourt that the Cougars have, and maybe see some of that foul trouble that Emmanuel Sharp dealt with against Iowa State, the Buffs could do something against Houston on the road. But I feel like you can never count out some senior day magic. Elijah Malone, it will be his last game at the CU Event Center. I know he hasn't had the best stretch of games, the best last season. But, senior day can do something special. I'm sure that the Buffs may see some more of him in his final showing in front of the home crowd. And, I just want to put that out there. I want to put that out there. Layla Wood, man.
I'm sorry, by the way, because I had to give you guys an either-or question, right? I mean, Liam, you said it wasn't likely either way. But, Xavier, I know you're kind of a guy when I ask you a question, you'll give me the answer straight up, right? So I'm going to ask you just plain and simple. Do they win one of those games?
Nope. No, they're not going to win one of those games.
This is why I like this guy.
Well, if that was the question,
I gave him an either-or. I put him in a bad position.
Are they going to win? No.
They're not going to win. Can they compete? Maybe, but they're not going to win.
Okay, so let me just make sure that we save this clip for that the Colorado Creative team can put this in their highlight edit reel when they do eventually win one of those games.
Hopefully,
wait, when Elijah Malone drops 25 points on senior day and the court storm happens against Arizona.
You never know.
And he stands on the scorer's table like Evan Batty.
College basketball is a weird thing. Arizona State beat Texas Tech last night, so you just never know what's going to happen.
Man,
but transitioning into our next talking point, Xavier, I wanted to mention the women's team, their ceiling, right? Because they are towards the top of the Big 12 now. I mean, this is a team that I think can compete with any team in that conference. I mean, you saw them beat TCU at home. But, what is their ceiling retrospectively in the NCAA tournament? Because the last two times they've been in the NCAA tournament, they've won 2 games.
Right.
They're not going to be able to host probably one, but, this team is peaking at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, the last time they went to the NCAA tournament, they ran into the wall that was Caitlin Clark in Iowa, right? But I think their highest, the highest peak of the ceiling that they can possibly go is round of 32 in the tourney. I think that they'll win the round of 64. I think that they'll make the tourney, but they'll lose in the round of 32 for sure.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I think the ceiling on this is a round of 64 exit. I think that if they're a first 4 team that is playing in that first round, they're having to play in to the tournament. I think they could win that initial game. They get into the bracket, right. But then at that point, I just don't think this team has the consistency to get past that round of 64. Yeah. They're not going to get a favorable matchup if they do win that first 4. Well, go for it.
And I must add that I think it's really going to matter how they play a neutral site in Kansas at the Big 12, because if they're balling out in neutral site, then who knows how the NCAA tournament's going to go, because that's neutral site games until the Sweet 16.
Yeah, but I think that certainly could play into it. But if I'm looking at it right now where we stand, I'm going to have to say that this Buffaloes team is not going to make it past the round of 64, and that's simply off of the back of inconsistency and the unfavorable matchup that they are going to face if they get to that point.
Well, I think the big thing, which doesn't make me think that they are counted out 100% of a round of 64 if they get there, is the fact that they'll have to build a bunch of momentum to even get to that spot. So they'll be playing with momentum in that first weekend. I don't think they'll leave it. I think the round of 32 is the ceiling for this CU Buffs women's team. But they don't, the three things that you look at for a team that has upset potential is three-point shooting, rebounding, and defense. They don't got the three-point shooting, but the rebounding and the defense is huge. And against a team that may not be expecting that tough of a matchup in the first round, having a team that's not going to fold over and give up easy baskets on the defensive end and will play a hard, gritty game in that first round, I think that could potentially lead to an upset, as this Buffs team has pulled off in some recent years in past tournaments.
Yeah, and you never know with that three-point shooting especially. I mean, their best shooter has been out most of the year. Gonzaga transfer Claire O'Connor, she's a lefty, she's a spot-up shooter. She's just that threat that the Buffaloes have been missing on offense all season long. Dez, can't lie, much as I love Dez, she's a little bit of a shot chucker sometimes. It'll be fresh in the shot clock, she'll hit a pull-up three, right? But I think the Buffaloes, if they can get that three-point consistency back in Claire O'Connor, I think the sky's the limit.
Well, and if there's a lack of film on her, that's a lot. That makes a big difference at this point in the season. If you don't have film on her, that could be a surprise factor.
Yeah, and me and Harrison, the other women's basketball nerd in the club, we're talking that they also might just have to retain her eligibility, because you might not be able to plug and play into this team with the offensive inconsistency that they have.
Well, I'm happy you brought up the word film, Oliver, because we're about to get into the film breakdown segment. But real quick before we do transition to that, I want to give my piece on this women's team, because I'm actually very excited about this program right now. They have won 4 in a row. I think they're going to make it 5 in a row on Saturday. They welcome in the town number 20, Texas Tech. I'm just going to say it right now. I know it's still a couple weeks away. I think this team's going to be in the Big 12 championship game when it comes to tournament time in a couple weeks. I think that they're playing really good basketball right now. The only concern, Oliver, you mentioned it, this team shoots sub 30% from three-point land as a team. They don't really have anyone other than Desiree Wooden who can knock down that kind of shot. But when you score 40 points in the paint every single game, they haven't really needed that recently. So I do have some hope and optimism. I think we're going to see them on Sunday at the Big 12 tournament. But we're going to get into now the film breakdown of Colorado's loss to BYU this past weekend. Oliver's going to join me at the monitor in just a second. Welcome into this week's edition of Film Breakdown alongside men's basketball beat writer Oliver Hayes. And Oliver, the men went to Provo on Saturday, and they competed against the number 22 team ranked in the country, BYU. They lost in overtime, but they found a lot of success offensively. A lot of that was because the looks they got in the paint.
Yeah, 100%. The Buffs scored 40 points in the paint, which is big for them. That's something they did during non-conference play, which has calmed down during Big 12 play. But Isaiah Johnson, he's been consistent all season long. 27 points, a career high. But he got the big guys involved. Bangad Dak at 15 points. You can see him feed BD down here, get a hook shot. BD was efficient in the paint. But the big thing I want to look at is that the broadcast missed it right here, or the highlight tape, excuse me. But BD had just set his screen. Teams all season long have been trying to blitz Isaiah Johnson and Barrington Hargis off these screens in order to stop them from getting to either of the 3 levels and scoring the ball, because that's what they do well. But instead of being able to get the blitz, IJ gets around the blitz and creates a mismatch, a disadvantage. He throws that oop up, and BD is able to slam it home. And the Buffs were able to get 40 points in the paint. Like I said, BD with 15, IJ with a career-high 27 points.
Yeah, it's really good to see Bangad Dak thriving, because we know what he's capable of, right? When he is inside, because he's a 7-footer, he's dominant in the paint. Far too many times this season, Oliver, in my opinion, he's been outside the three-point line taking shots that aren't really his shots, so it's good to see him getting down low. And again, this Colorado offense found a lot of success against a pretty good BYU team.
Yeah, and a big thing is making sure that he's taking those shots on balance. And Isaiah Johnson, by getting BD the ball in the spots where he was, allowed him to just go straight up and get those shots at the rim and be efficient. But in this clip right here, BD, he gets the offensive rebound, scores quickly. But this is where the Buffs lost the game, which was on defense. You can see that BYU, they played fast. That's why they were able to beat the Buffs last year and blow them out at home. But in this clip, you can see Kibakita. He sets a drag screen right here at the top of the key. This is something that teams have been doing a lot against the Buffs in transition, especially especially against the young Buffaloes. So Devontae, even though he had a tough game, I believe 6-20 from the field, 7 turnovers, he's able to kick it out, draw the help defense. You were able to see Jalen Holland, Sebastian Ranchik help over on this side, allowing Rob Wright III to get open. He knocks down the triple. And then you can see on this next clip right here, no drag screen, but Jalen Holland, he was helping all the way down here on this wing with Sebastian Ranchik. Rob Wright steps into a 3. He was 4 of 4 from beyond the arc in his career high 39-point performance, which is a big reason why BYU took that 4-point win in overtime.
And obviously, Devontae is going to be our number one on the scouting report, but after Robert Wright drops 39, I think he's going to be either 1A or 1B on the scouting report going forward, because this guy was money from perimeter. He had 4 threes in this game. BYU hit 11. It's a big reason why Colorado struggled this season is defensively. They can't contain the perimeter. Teams are shooting 38% against the Buffs this season. We saw it again here.
Yeah, no, on this clip, this was huge because this just showed Rob Wright take over in the half court whenever BYU wasn't able to play fast. You can see he comes off a screen, doesn't really have something, but just takes Isaiah Johnson, steps through, gets a bucket. But this is a clip where you can see another drag screen come in, and the transition defense hurts the Buffs. And we don't see a 3 on this possession, but we quickly see that transition defense, BD, is too high on the hedge. Rob Wright is able to split this, and in a game where BYU is leading by 2 or 3 minutes left, he gets an and 1, and that wasn't the day. Of course, the Buffs are able to force OT, but too many of those plays continue to happen for the final 3 minutes and the rest of overtime, especially when the Buffs only shot 2 and 9 from the field in OT. Doesn't help them there, and they end up losing.
Well, Oliver, Tad Boyle said it after the game, but this game came down to made shots and missed shots, and BYU had a lot of open looks like we saw in this game because Devontae created so much pressure, created so much attention, and Robert Wright Jr. really took advantage of that one. But regardless, a very promising performance for Colorado, especially offensively, scoring 86 points against a really good BYU team. We'll see if they can continue this momentum. The Buffs welcome Oklahoma State into the event center this Saturday. We'll send it back to the desk. Thanks, Oliver.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much, Oliver. That was probably one of our best film breakdowns so far from the semester, and I really appreciate you coming on talking about that BYU overtime loss. Could have been a great win for Colorado, but some big games that are coming up this weekend, guys. It's time for a weekend prediction segment here on SBS Basketball Live. Number 4, Arizona, goes to number 2, Houston. A top 5 matchup, Xavier. We're seeing a lot of these in the Big 12 this season. This could be a Final Four preview. Houston has not lost at home this season. They are 13-0. Does Arizona snap that?
I think they do. I think it's the best defense versus the best offense. I think Zona's going to pull off the upset technically, even though it's a top 5 matchup. I think Zona's going to pull off the upset on the road, and I'm just going to echo what Liam said. I mean, Arizona's a great squad, right? I don't think that Houston will be able to play to Arizona's level, even though Houston's technically ranked higher at home.
Yeah, I'm going to have to sort of echo that as well. I think that Arizona is going to pick up that win. I've talked all day about Arizona and how I would straight up put them over Houston. I think that even though they are on the road in this game, I think that their ability to score in bunches and score quickly doesn't really matter if you're Houston and you get ahead by a lot. It's not going to last for long if you're playing up against a team like Arizona who can score so quickly. I think that they are going to be a good matchup for Houston's defense. Might be a, like you said, Final Four preview that we're getting to watch in this game.
Yeah, this will be a heck of a game. I don't see whoever takes this game winning by more than 4 points. I mean, this game will come down to one possession, in my opinion. But I have to, like Liam said, after talking about Arizona and hyping up so much, I have to ride with Arizona and the Wildcats, even though they're traveling to Houston for this one, because the thing with this one is that for the Houston's offense, so much of their offense falls on that backcourt of Kingston Flemings, Emmanuel Sharp, and Milos Uzan. And last year, while that backcourt had LJ Cryer instead of Emmanuel Sharp, Juwan Roberts had a lot of that offensive production, and they could rely on him a lot more. And he was helping the Cougars' offense last year in a lot of those gritty games. And they don't have him as much this year, even though Chris Nack has stepped up and played a great role as a freshman. And I think that Arizona, when watching them, when they have so many options all over the court, from Jane Bradley to Braden Berries to Koa Pete to their front court that I've talked about so much, there's so much less to worry about whenever they are on the offense side of the ball. And that's why they're the best offense in the Big 12. That's why they have the record that they have. And that's why I think that they're going to pick up the win against the Cougars on the road.
Let the record be known that these guys really like Arizona as a basketball team. And they think that Houston's going to lose their first game at home this season. Again, I don't make picks on this segment, but looking forward to that top 5 showdown on Saturday. Another game that's big for the conference standings, guys, is number 6 Iowa State, who is my favorite team in the country now. I think arguably, dare I say, the hottest team in the country right now travels to Provo to face number 23 BYU. Arizona just beat BYU tonight, so they fell. Probably going to be out of the top 25, but the biggest sin for me, I'll toss this over to you though, Xavier, is Richie Saunders tore his ACL, out for the season, going up against Iowa State, but they are at home, BYU.
Yeah, no, I'm taking the Cyclones. Yeah, 100%. BYU's been playing terrible basketball recently, and if the CU men's basketball team can take BYU to overtime, I got no doubt Iowa State will take BYU in Provo anywhere by a couple possessions.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing there is just the ineffectiveness of that home court advantage for BYU. It didn't do anything to the Colorado Buffaloes, so it certainly isn't going to do anything to the number 6 team in Iowa State, a team whose fans are known to travel incredibly well. Milan Momcilovic is scoring the ball anytime he touches it at this point for Iowa State, and no defense can seemingly stop him. I don't think that's going to change at all with a BYU team that is struggling right now, not playing a good brand of basketball, like you said, Xavier, and of course, losing Richie Saunders, a huge hit there. It's sort of AJ DeBonsa versus the world right now when you're facing an Iowa State team with the forwards they have. Give me Iowa State.
I mean, I think you're discounting Rob Wright, who just dropped a career high,
True.
39 points after dropping 30 points on his ex-team Baylor in the game before. He's been on an offensive tear, even though BYU has not been playing winning basketball as of late. So they do have some options, but I mean, 2 isn't enough against an Iowa State team that plays the defense that they do. When TJ Otzelberger's defense is playing at its best and they're switching screens, they're trapping either on the baseline or out near half court, there is not a lot that even the best offensive teams can do. So without Richie Saunders, looking at AJ DeBonsa and Rob Wright III versus the world, I think it will be very tough for BYU, even on their home court, to do stuff. And looking at their front court, which doesn't stack up as well against the other Big 12 front courts, which I think is why CU was able to play so well against them, which was due to the personnel side of things. I think Iowa State and Blake Buchanan, they wreak havoc. Josh Jefferson as well. He does everything on a basketball court. He is going to be an All-American this year. So Iowa State, there is no reason why they shouldn't win this game. I believe they could win in blowout fashion.
Well, I'm sorry, guys. Today we might have to make the headline copy and paste because I mean, like another game where all you guys are picking Iowa State. But again, I gave these guys a job to pick the winner, and that's what they're doing. So I'm happy about that. But we got to get some disagreement here sometime on this show. I don't know if we're going to though. I don't know if we've ever gone all 4 games with the same picks. We'll see if that happens tonight. It's really interesting. But Xavier, number 20 Texas Tech comes to the event center to play Colorado women's team in what is a Saturday doubleheader. The women's game is the primetime game, but we'll start with that one. Colorado has won 4 straight, but Texas Tech just beat a ranked Baylor team by 30 tonight. Does that scare you and Jared Payne's team?
The Buffs will have to be on their A game, right? But what's nice is the Buffs just seem like a completely different team at home, right? I mean, they go to Arizona. Arizona's the second worst team in the Big 12. Right, and it takes them 35 minutes to realize, oh crap, we got to win this game if we want to go to March, right? And so, I think the Buffs are going to have to be on their A game. They can't turn the ball over. They're going to need rebounds, but I think they're going to earn that final upset of the season, and it's going to look good in the committee's eyes. I think they're going to win by at least like 8 points. And the Buffs will.
Confident.
Yeah, I think the Buffs will take that dub.
Liam, are you that confident?
That certainly is a bit more confident than I'm willing to go. I think that the inconsistency I talked about earlier when I was looking at this women's team, this is the type of game that I'm talking about, where there's a lot of fluctuation with this team. They have a lot of low lows. Look at the UCF game as an example there, games where they play far below their standard, but then they have games where they play far above it. Their ceiling is very high, where their floor is low. It's a roller coaster ride for this women's team at times. I think this is going to be the peak of that roller coaster. They know they need to win now. I think, Xavier, this is going to be a little bit different than most times. I think they're going to come out a little earlier in the game and realize this is a must-win for March. This is a must-win for the resume builder. They've got the home crowd behind them. I think that this is a game where they are going to pick up the win. I still think it might slow down a little bit towards the end of the season when you got a little bit bigger gaps between games and you're traveling to Kansas City. You've got these tournament games that you're having to play through if you're the Buffaloes. I think that's where it'll slow down, but I think right here, this is the peak of this basketball team, and they're going to pick up a huge win against Texas Tech.
Yeah, I think you guys bring up great points, so I won't say too much. I think the only way that the Red Raiders will pick up a win against this hungry Buffaloes team playing in the CU Event Center will be if they can shoot the three-point ball well. And they've done that this season. They can shoot it from the perimeter. But as you guys have mentioned, that home court advantage for the Buffaloes, especially for that women's team, really gets them going and makes it hard to shoot for these opposing teams. It leads to turnovers. It leads to other things. And not only that, it leads to the rebounding efforts, which the Buffaloes are strong in on this. They have been this season. And when you look at Texas Tech, their numbers are dipping more towards the bottom of the Big 12 when it comes to rebounding the basketball. So I think if Texas Tech isn't able to get that three-point stroke going, I think the Buffs can out-physical and out-strengthen the Red Raiders and come out with a big win leading up to March.
Well, that would make it 5 wins in a row for Colorado women's basketball, and even though this wouldn't be a quad 1 win for them, that would be certainly a very good marquee one because that will be their second-ranked win of the season if these guys are correct. But the first game of that doubleheader is Oklahoma State comes to Colorado to play the men's team. Colorado's just looking for a win at this point. Do they get it though on Saturday?
I think they'll get it. Yeah, I got some faith in Tad and them boys. I think
them
that
boys.
in them boys, Tad and them, right? but I think they'll get a win. I mean, they pushed BYU to overtime. I think Oklahoma State's not the level caliber of opponent as BYU at home at the CU Event Center. I think the Buffs will take it up.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I think that this is obviously we've mentioned a lot on this show so far, the must-win out sort of mentality the Buffaloes have to have right now at this point in the season. This is one of those games that is a cannot lose. And I think when you are the Buffaloes at your home court, this is a game that they should win. There's no real excuse to either. They've got a full week of prep, whereas Oklahoma State is currently playing as we speak. They might have wrapped up by now. They were trailing big against Kansas, 74-58, with just about 5 minutes to play right before we started the show. So that's going to look like 4 straight losses
They were
for
at home,
Oklahoma
too.
State. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's going to look like 4 straight losses coming into this game for Oklahoma State. Not going to have as much time to prep for the Buffaloes. I think the Buffs got to get this win.
Yeah, I mean, the Buffs do have to get this win just for morale's sake of things. But looking at this Oklahoma State team, they have the offense. They can score the basketball, 4 double-digit scores, led by Anthony Roy, who's scoring over 17 points per game. That is what scares me about this Cowboys team and this Buffaloes team as well. Their defense has been poor this whole year. They've given up big performances. When they've played teams that can score the basketball, they have been in trouble. However, at the same time, when the Buffs have scored the basketball and have found offensive success, they have won more high-scoring games than not. And so against this Oklahoma State team, who has Parsafara, a great front court player, he's not the tallest, and the rest of their front court isn't the best. And as I brought up in that CU-BYU game, I think that CU matched up well with the smaller BYU front court. I think it could be a similar case. It will probably be a high-scoring affair, like I mentioned. But I think CU with that front court advantage will be hungry again. Sebastian Ranchik is rebounding the ball a lot better. Bangot Dak, as we talked about in the film breakdown, 15 points against BYU. He was fed the ball well by the point guards, but he scored the ball well. It was a lot more efficient, and the backcourt has been fantastic and consistent all season long. And so if the defense, which has been coming along, can lock in on those scores, I don't think Oklahoma State will have too much of a chance against this young Buffaloes team. That's very exciting.
Well, guys, I never thought I'd see the day where we go 4 games and everyone picks the same exact team for every single game. That's just one of those nights here that it was on SBS Basketball Live. Control-C, Control-V much, but it was a very much fun episode alongside Xavier McNevitz. He's Liam Howard, he's Oliver Hayes, and I'm Shane Holcomb saying good night, Boulder. Have a nice night.